And good evening, everyone. I am Meghna Jaswal. I am the Research Coordinator and Youth Ambassador at Global Counterterrorism Council. We would begin our event with the first session, which is Contemporary Perspectives on an Old Conflict. This session is going to focus largely on the historical understanding of aggression in Kashmir, followed by the historical underpinning of the instrument of accession, along with its implication on the state all these years. The significance held by Article 370 will also be talked about, along with the legal aspect of the special status which had been given to Jammu and Kashmir will be discussed. Joining us today in the session are distinguished speakers whose names speaks for themselves. The panelists for the session include Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, who is also the chief guest of the event. Welcome, sir. Dr. Swamy is a member of parliament in Rajya Sabha, leading economist and statistician. He was a union cabinet minister in Chandrasekhar government. He served as the chairman of the Commission on Labour Standards and International Trade under former PM P.V. Narasimha Rao. He has also been a member of the Planning Commission. He founded the Action Committee Against Corruption in India, demanded an independent committee to be formed to check the safety and security of the EVM, amongst other things. Thank you for being here today, sir. I would like to request our chief guest, Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, to give the keynote address, followed by which our moderator, Praneesh Roy, will take over. Sir, I would like you to take over. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. The initiative you have taken is a very essential one because there is so much confusion that has been created about what the true status of Kashmir has been and is now. Two concepts I think I need to address here for this conference, which there's a lot of opaqueness in understanding and in the way it is being presented around the world. The first one is the concept of instrument of accession, and the second one is Article 370. And both these, are known by name, but very few know the details because it's hardly been presented anywhere else except perhaps in scholarly books on constitutional law and so on. What I would like to begin with is saying that in 1935, the British introduced a law which was called the Government of India Act of 1935. In that, they divided the nation into, that was the undivided nation, into two parts. Those which were being directly ruled by the British and those which were indirectly ruled through the monarchy, through the kingdoms that were there. And so there were about 565 kingdoms which were indirectly ruled by the British through regents they had. But the head of the government was the king or the queen, as the case may be. So when the question then became, what is the relationship? And at that time, the British Indian government made it clear that if any of the kingdoms wanted to merge into British India, and be part of the British India and directly ruled by the British, then they would have to sign something called the Instrument of Accession. And that time it was limited to, for the king to sign, or king or queen, or whoever was the monarch or the head of the government from the monarchy, to say that the British Indian government in Delhi would be in charge of defense, foreign policy, and communications. Otherwise, the king would continue to rule the state for internal matters. That was the position in 1935. In 1947, when it was decided to partition India, the British introduced in the House of Commons in London, their parliament, that is, a bill called the Indian Independence Act. In that, the proposition was that there will be a Pakistan, a Muslim-ruled Pakistan, is the exact words the British Prime Minister, while introducing the bill, said, and a Hindu-ruled India. and 565 kingdoms will become independent and become countries in their own right. So 1/3 of the undivided India was of kingdoms, and 2/3 was to be partitioned between India and Pakistan. But it also said that the kingdoms, if they want to merge with either India or Pakistan, they could invoke the instrument of accession. But they also made an amendment, because it was, after all, it was not a, in 1935, it was just a government order. So they issued another government order to say that either they can go to Pakistan or they can go to India, or they can have a standstill agreement where they can continue to remain an independent kingdom and an independent country. So by the monumental work of Sardar Patel, who was then had become the Minister for the States and Home Minister in general, in the interim government that was there, and after August 15, 1947 also, Sardar Patel worked very, very hard and ensured that about 500 of the 565 kingdoms would merge with India, and by signing the instrument of accession. And only three countries then called countries, three kingdoms, had a problem. One was in Junagadh. Junagadh, the king, the Nawab, as he was called, decided to go with Pakistan, but it was 95% Hindu, and there was a lot of unrest. And so Junagadh Nawab decided to send his army to chase these demonstrators and then cross the border into other parts of Kutch. And therefore, this caused alarm. And because Kutch was, other parts of Kutch were part of India, so Sardar Patel sent the army to protect the people who were not a part of Junagadh. But when the Nawab saw a huge army coming, he got frightened, and so he packed all his belongings, and also he had a large number of dogs. He put them also in cages, and he took them to Pakistan. So he abandoned his kingdom. And so the Indian army then decided, for the sake of law and order, to move into Junagadh, and that's how Junagadh became part of India. Then there was the issue of Hyderabad, where the Nizam had made a standstill agreement. But then the Razakars went outside the borders of Hyderabad and started killing the Hindus in neighboring villages in the border, across the border. And this required also sending the army to protect them. And when it reached in large numbers the border, Nizam capitulated and signed the instrument of accession to merge with India. So that solved the problem by Hyderabad. What remained was Kashmir. And there the Hindu king of a largely Muslim, with a large population of Muslims, he decided to have a standstill agreement. But after he had signed the standstill agreement with both Jinnah's government, or whatever that was called then, Jinnah's council, and with India, the Pakistanis decided to send irregulars, those Pakistani soldiers who were not dressed in military clothes. He sent them across to try and physically take control of Kashmir. And Maharaja was unable to defend his kingdom. So he came running to Delhi and wanted Indian troops to come and back him up. But Sardar Patel was very firm, and he said, either you sign the instrument of accession or we won't do it. So he signed the instrument of accession without any conditions. If you get a copy of the instrument of accessions, you'll see there's no copy. All this bluff that goes on by the Abdullahs, from Sheikh Abdullah to Farooq Abdullah to Omar Abdullah, that there were conditions and so on. There are no conditions. The signature was plain and simple. It was a regular pro forma, very regular form that was filled out, and he signed the instrument of accession, and that's how Kashmir came under the protection of India. And so at that stage, however, Jawaharlal Nehru, for some reason, I don't know what it is, people can give all kinds of motives, assign all kinds of motives. I won't go into that. He went without cabinet approval, and this I verified when I was a minister in Chandrasekhar's government. I was the senior most minister, member of the select committee called the Committee on Security and Political Affairs. And so I could access files which were secret. And those files did show that Nehru had not taken cabinet approval. He had never put it before the cabinet. And Sardar Patel himself has recorded, at least his Maniben, his daughter's books show that, biography show that, or it was Sardar Patel's papers, which he has edited. It show that Sardar Patel learnt about it only from All India Radio. So Nehru went to UN and filed a petition saying that we have been attacked, and therefore the United Nations Security Council should take it up. So that's how we got into the United Nations Security Council. And so the United Nations Security Council then made a proposal at the end of 1948, or rather in the beginning of 1948, stating that there should be an immediate ceasefire, and then 3 conditions: that the Pakistanis must pull all the irregulars and irregulars. By then the regulars had also come, they had come so far as Baramulla, but then the Indian troops went after the signing of the instrument accession and drove them and went right up and captured Muzaffarabad, which we had to withdraw from later on, thanks to Jawaharlal Nehru. And so the first thing the United Nations said, that Pakistan should withdraw all its troops, regular and irregular, from Kashmir. Second is India should withdraw a bulk of its troops from Kashmir, but leave a substantial number to maintain law and order. And then third is that when this is accomplished, then there shall be steps taken for holding a plebiscite. This was the United Nations resolution, and they had given a period by which this has to be completed. But Pakistan never withdrew its troops. We withdrew from Muzaffarabad and brought them back to Kashmir, and Pakistan reoccupied that. And then after that, they did nothing. And so years and years went by, and ultimately we reached the situation in 1971 when Pakistan lost Bangladesh, and there was a Simla agreement, and many of the things which they were not agreeable to then was there. But the United Nations presence continued to remain till the BJP government came and we told them to pack up and go. But we have not yet withdrawn our Jawaharlal Nehru's petition filed in the Security Council, although it has been lapsed. So many years have gone by, more than 75 years, 70 years have gone by. We have not withdrawn it, and we should withdraw it because it has become null and void. And there was a time limit placed on Pakistan complying with the withdrawing of its troops, which it did not. So there is that has no value. The UN thing, which they're just talking nonsense. We shouldn't even bother to attend if anyone, any of the veto holding powers. There's being only one now. That is China. If they decide to have a discussion, we should simply say, to hell with it, we are not attending it, because it has no legal validity. So this must be absolutely clear, that there is nothing which has now stands in the way of Kashmir becoming part of India because of the instrument accession. One new development did take place. The instrument accession had limited the accession to defense, foreign policy, and communication. But in Sardar Patel had promised all the Rajas and Maharajas and the Nawabs, like Nizam, they had promised, Sardar Patel had promised a hefty privy purse. And that hefty privy purse was the reason why all the Rajas and the, all those who had acceded to India, they, literally gave India, the government in Delhi, full access to running the state as a state of any other part of India. And that procedure went. I'll come back to this point again when I take up, conclude with the on Article 370. But this privy purse literally made all of these 500 odd kingdoms, which became part of India through the accession of instrument of accession, almost a state like any other state like Uttar Pradesh. So therefore, there was never a question raised. Later on, in 1971, Mrs. Gandhi did something which was against the agreement we had between Sardar Patel and all the Rajas, that if they sign the instrument accession, they will get an handsome privy purse, and she violated that, partly because the Rajas had joined Swatantra Party, which became the principal opposition in 1967. They got almost 50 Lok Sabha seats, and that frightened Mrs. Gandhi, and there's all these socialists and pro-Russian types who, like Haksar, who is also a Kashmiri, P.N. Dhar, another Kashmiri, D.P. Dhar, another Kashmiri. They all ganged up and said that, this privy purse is a dangerous thing. It provides finance for the Swatantra Party. So they abolished privy purse. And in the course of that, the prince, those who signed the kings or the queens or the nawabs who signed the instrument accession, literally became deprived of anything. And slowly, what happened is the states, all, not only Kashmir but all states, became amalgamated. Then we had states reorganization that made also a big change, but no one protested. And then later on, when Janata came to power in 77, and we made some arrangements by which today, instead of the privy purse and being part of the constitution, we have an arrangement by which the royalties are getting their due. And therefore now it's now a settled question that we had then adopted, that no states will be except what the constitution says a state is. We made special arrangements for union territories. We made special arrangements for tribal states, where we said you can't go and buy land there. For instance, Himachal, you can't buy land if you're an outsider. Same thing in Nagaland and so on. That's Article 371. But in the process of this, I would like to say, there is absolutely no question that Kashmir is an integral part of India, just like any other state. We've been through a process, but that process has never challenged by anybody, and it has now become part of our constitution. The next thing is that, in far as Kashmir is concerned, the constitution was finalized on 26th November 1949. On 16th November, Jawaharlal Nehru sent Sheikh Abdullah to meet Ambedkar and say that, you see, since the matter is in the UN, therefore you should have a clause called Article 370. And that Article 370 should give a special status to Kashmir, and till the United Nations case is settled, we should have a separate constitution also for the for Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir as it was called then, which included Ladakh also. So Ambedkar said, I'm not a traitor, because Ambedkar was in charge of drafting committee and amendments and all that. He said, already we have almost finished with the constitution. I'm not going to reopen it, and certainly I'm not a traitor. I'll never agree to this. And he was very adamant about it. So the president of of the Constituent Assembly, Rajendra Prasad, asked the chairman of the Fundamental Rights Committee, Sardar Patel, whether he can make an alternative arrangement. Nehru also said that he won't be around. He is to go for an urgent meeting in London. We don't know why, because there were no international conferences going on at that time that he had to go. But for some private reason, he went to London. I would not like to get into it, what that was. It's irrelevant here. And so he requested Sardar Patel that, please help me out on this and take care of the matter. So Sardar Patel then picked up Gopal Sami Iyengar, who used to be the Diwan of Kashmir, and asked him to move the resolution for Article 370 to be incorporated. But there was such a furor in the Constituent Assembly that all the kings and all the royalty said, why did they had become members of the Constituent Assembly? They said, why did you not give it to us also? Why only Kashmir? And Sardar Patel then pacified them by saying this is due to that United Nations case. It's a temporary thing. And as soon as that case is over, this will automatically go. So Article 370 was brought in, and there was also a provision that a Constituent Assembly only for Jammu Kashmir will also be set up to have temporarily a constitution for the state of Kashmir, which will be different from the Constitution of India. And so that commission was set up in 1951. And the constitution was completed, and it became part of our republic on 26th of January 1950. And then from 1951, the Jammu Kashmir Constituent Assembly met, and at the end of 1956, they produced a constitution for Kashmir. And there's no reference to Article 370 in that constitution. All that is reference is there is one, that is in the preamble of that Jammu Kashmir constitution, that the state of Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India. So, I mean, the Constituent Assembly was clearly a temporary thing, but it had already accepted that Jammu Kashmir is an integral part of India. So that's how that constitution cannot be invoked. There are a lot of lies being told. The Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir says no, 370 is a link between India and Kashmir, and so on. All this rubbish, none of it is there in writing or in any proceedings or anything like that. Now, therefore, the question is, how long will Article 370 continue? In the Constitution itself, the provision of Article 370 is put in with a headline stating temporary provision for the state of Jammu and Kashmir. And in that it says so many things. And then it says that, however, this article can be deleted or abolished by a notification by the President of India. Now, how does the President issue a notification? The Cabinet decides a resolution, frames a resolution, sends it to the President to sign. The President may reject signing it, in which case the matter will come back again. And if the Cabinet sends again the same thing, then the President is required to sign it whether he likes it or not. So anyway, the President was Rajendra Prasad. He would have signed it immediately if it had come, but it kept on getting elongated. So there is no reference to Article 370 in the Jammu Kashmir Constitution. There is no scope even of any doubt about the status of the Jammu Kashmir, because the preamble of the Jammu Kashmir Constitution says that it's an integral part of India, Jammu Kashmir. It was at the end of 56, it became constitution. And now, of course, when the BJP decided that we will, a lot of people had a lot of confusion. Even my own party men, I had to educate a lot of people saying you don't need 2/3 majority. This was the argument given by Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time. No, you need 2/3 majority. We don't have 2/3 majority. But in fact, you didn't need even a majority. If you were in power, and the president was, the prime minister sent up the president a resolution of the cabinet, he would have to, make it public. So that's exactly what happened. I think it was in August sometime, August 5th or something, and we didn't take a vote. However, our party felt that we will have an approval vote. That is just to give to the country, to the world and the country, that, if we wanted, we could have had 2/3 majority. So Lok Sabha anyway, BJP has 2/3 majority, no problem. And then it came to Rajya Sabha, and surprisingly, the Congress was totally isolated, and we got 2/3 majority, approving the decision of the president. That is, it was a resolution. It was not a act of parliament or anything like that. It was a resolution appreciating what the president has done. So Article 370 was abolished completely legally. And then, of course, under the constitution, we have the power to divide the state. So we made Jammu Kashmir one union territory, and the other is Ladakh as union territory. And we are also bound to recover the POK part, because in 1994, Narasimha Rao, for some reason, suddenly woke up one day. I had a minister rank position as a chairman of a commission on the WTO matters. And so he told me he's going to bring in a resolution and ask all MPs to sign it, to approve it in a resolution. And that is that we shall not rest till every inch of Jammu and Kashmir is restored back to India. Now, I was surprised. I thought nobody will vote again, no majority will not approve. But surprisingly, it was unanimous. Not a single party objected. Someone, one or two made speeches. But when it came to voting, so we are bound by Parliament, by a Parliament resolution, committed to recover POK. And the question is, it's a big question, so I won't take up more of your time, but I would say that the Jammu Kashmir issue is over. Then the only thing that now remains is the return of the Kashmiri Pandits. And that can be done, in my opinion, if we first send 10 lakhs of ex-servicemen from the 1 crore we have of ex-servicemen. 10 lakhs are between the ages of 50 and 60. You send them there, give them money, give them weapons, and give them a place to stay. They can go with their families, live there, create a situation where when the Kashmiri Pandits come, they will have security, assured security, central forces which will be only devoted to the security of the Kashmiri Pandits, and get these 5 lakh Kashmiri Pandits back, whoever wants to come. But we will not forget the Kashmiri Pandit problem at all, because that is a holy commitment. It is a genocide that took place. It is a shocking episode of our history, which the world seems to be oblivious of, because at that time that government didn't want to publicize it. It is it's a telling commentary on the kind of people who were in the leadership in Jammu Kashmir. But today, in my opinion, the Jammu Kashmir legal problems are all over. There's only one moral problem left, and that is the return of the Kashmiri Pandits. This is what I wanted to say, which is not is not reported in newspapers, is not reported in many books. And I thought that this conference should have an opinion on this from my side, and that's why I've devoted my entire time for speaking on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Your address was indeed very insightful and answers a lot of questions surely for all of us. And it was very well detailed and gave the entire summary of what our session is about even. And as you said in the end that the Jammu and Kashmir issue is over, but still the return of Kashmiri Pandits is left. I guess that answers one of the questions posed in the chat box as well. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for being here today.